We often talk about putting our families first and how it's those simple things that can make a difference when it comes to our loved ones. Well, today we're going to talk about an emergency contact program that everyone should be using. Hi, I'm Randy Warren, and this is the Well Said Podcast with your sheriff, Rick Wells.
Well, Randy, welcome back.
Thank you.
I know you took a little much-needed time off.
I did.
As you put it.
I do. I get my breaks in.
Because I know you're very stressed out. And I think that
mental recharging, yes.
But I know that you tell people that I put you through the ringer. I try not to. I try to be nice to you.
You are.
Am I not a good boss?
You're a very good
All
boss.
Right. So anyway, I'm very excited to have Christine Olson with us today. She is a dear friend, someone I love very much, someone that I have had the honor of knowing and being around and seeing how a person with a mission, which was based on a tragedy, how just an average person can get things done and something that can come out of a tragedy that's really impacted so many lives, not only in the state of Florida, but in the entire country. And I don't want to get too much into Christine's story because she has had, you've talked about this throughout the country in the last 20 years.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah,
I'm coming up on 19, but
yep.
Hopefully the finish line will be 20 and it will be nationwide by then. So I have a little time.
So 20 will be next October.
October 2nd,
Right.
2026.
Right. So it's hard to believe, actually.
It is
when I think
absolutely
about it.
hard to believe.
So if you would, Christine, I want you to start from the beginning because that's where we see the impact of what's transpired since December 7th of 2005.
That night. So I remember watching a movie on TV, and I want to say it was a movie about one of the popes, but it was a really good movie. And I want to say that it ended probably about 11 o'clock. And I had turned the TV off, went to bed, found my little sweet spot, and just started to go to sleep, and my phone rang. And I thought, who calls me this late, But I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I have family back there. So could have been my sisters having a few cocktails and saying, let's call Christine. And I honestly wasn't going to answer my phone. I thought, let it go to voicemail. And but there was this gut feeling. And it just prompted me to get out of bed and answer the phone. And it was my son, Derek. He was 29 at the time. And he says, Mom, she's been hurt in an accident. Get to Manatee Memorial. Don't ask questions. I'll meet you there. So, honestly, I don't even know if I got dressed. I don't. But I raced to Manatee Memorial, which is my neighborhood hospital. I met Derek at the emergency room entrance. We ran in together. I went to the desk, and I said, I'm looking for Tiffany Marie Olson. She's been hurt in an accident. So they look through their records and stuff, and they said, well, she's not here. And I says, well, I know she's been hurt in an accident, so can you call another hospital? And their response at that time, this was December 7th of 2005, was because of the HIPAA law, we don't call other hospitals. And I thought, that doesn't even make sense. I mean, really. And I said, can you call the police? Someone has to know where she is, and she's probably crying for her mom, And their response, once again, this is the emergency room. They just said, well, we don't know where it happened. We don't know what county. We don't know who to call. And I give them full credit because they're an emergency room. They are there for one mission, treating people coming in as an emergency. They ushered me to a small little room, and they said, you can try and make a phone call there. And isn't it funny how you remember things? I see the phone on the wall with the long cord, like that real long cord that always got real twisted up in that. Right. And my son and I are trying to make phone calls, but nobody's given us any information. I go into full-blown panic. I'm just like, oh my God, she's hurt somewhere. Someone help me. And I want to say, and there is no proof of this, but there was a security guard there, a woman. I can kind of get a little vision of her in my head. And I want to say that she started making phone calls. I just want to believe that because she's seen this mother falling apart and nobody there to help me. So no answers came, and now it's 1:30 in the morning, and I'm standing outside the emergency room entrance of Manatee Memorial, and Highway Patrol pulls into the parking lot. I relive this story like so often. I can see everything happening right in front of my eyes. My son, Derek, like I said, he was 29. He wasn't a little boy. He's on my left-hand side, and he collapses and starts crying. And I just looked at him, and I said, not Tiffany, not my girl. And they approached me. This is Highway Patrol, very casually. And they just said, sorry, she's gone. Well, because what I'm hearing from the phone calls I'm receiving is she's hurt. Them are the words I'm hearing. She's not dead. She's hurt. So I thought, well, she's gone means she's like in Tampa or she's in St. Pete or something. And they said no. And there's that vision again. I can remember a shrug of a shoulder. And it was a man. It was a law enforcement man. And that was just that shrug. And he said, well, no, I presume she's with the medical examiner, but they're closed. You can call them in the morning. Could you sign for this? And it was a plastic bag with my daughter's belongings. Mm-hmm. And I looked at it and I signed. I didn't know what else to do. And they sent me home. And I remember looking at Derek and said, Derek, I have to get gas. And he said, Mom, and I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta go. And I drove home on fumes with my daughter's belongings on my lap. And I went home. I lived on 66th off Cortez in an apartment. And I sat up all night waiting for the time that I felt was appropriate to call someone. And that was 6 a.m. And I called my friend Lisa. And Lisa answered the phone. She goes, what are you up so early for? Because I work nights at the Rod and Reel Pier. And I said, Lisa, Tiffy was killed. Oh. She goes, did you call Pastor Mark? And I said, not yet. And she said, I'm on my way. And that was that night.
And this hit home for us here at the sheriff's office because her boyfriend, correct? Mm-hmm. Is I believe, the stepson of one of our detectives.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and I remember, so we were already hearing about your tragedy, not knowing any idea of what you were going to end up doing in the months and a year later.
But Christine, I mean, really,
yeah.
as you're sitting there trying to make sense of what just happened, not really having any information on how your baby died, you start to realize that as the information comes in that the crash actually took place like 6.5 hours before you got a call, correct?
Yeah. So, 7:01 is when she was pronounced, and I don't know how that all works either. But, and I think another really thing to remember. So Tiffany and Dustin were on a motorcycle. And as far as Dustin goes, he was 7 years her senior, and he always had his eye on Tiffany, but she was always with someone else, you know. So he waited kind of in the background until the moment came where she was single again, and he approached her. I think she worked at Chili's down the road back then, and they started dating. But I found out that he was a motorcyclist. I say he came out of the womb on a bike because he raced him, he jumped him. He loved Tiffany. Tiffany loved Dustin, so she rode. But I remember having a conversation with Dustin, and I said, you have to be careful with my girl on the back of that bike. And he says, never worry. I have precious cargo. And I trusted. They always had helmets on. You know, there was always the speed limit. There was never alcohol. There was never nothing. But that night, their friend Clyde was riding with them. They were going out to dinner. And Clyde is in the bike behind them. So that young man, my heart just goes out to him too. So he witnesses impact because he's riding behind. And my understanding, again, is this was US 19 and 49th Street, that the car hit them with such force that Tiffany was thrown 93 feet, broke her neck, was killed on impact. Dustin went down, very, very critically injured, very, very bad. But Clyde is watching this. The bike blew up at him and it's just showering back at him. He throws down his bike and starts, you know, now there's people traveling on US 19. And he tries to, you know, go to help Dustin the best. But what he did first, he pulled Tiffany off the road so she wouldn't get hit by another car. Would I have done that? I don't know. I don't know. There's just, for a young person in their 20s, that's amazing that he did that extra step so she would not get hit by another car. Then ran to help Dustin. And I've met with him afterwards, and he's a changed man for the rest of his life. But he said when law enforcement showed up, they took his statement and sent him home. I don't think that should have been allowed. He should have been driven home. He should have never been allowed to get back on his bike because he's in a state of shock. I know what it is to be in a state of shock. You are not rational at all. You don't even see things, you know?
Yeah, right.
And then he started to try and, you know, who do I call? I mean, I don't know. They know Tiffany's number, they know Dustin's number, but they don't know parents' phone numbers. And this is what ties right into an emergency contact. So it was, what do you call it, the phone game? So Clyde is calling people. There's been an accident. There's been an accident. Does anybody know how to get a hold of Tiffany's, you know, brother or mom in this case? And finally they got a hold of Stephanie, which was Tiffany's best girlfriend. She goes, I don't know the mom's number, but I know the brother. So they called Derek. Derek calls me at 11:15. The accident happened 7:01. And then I'm taken to the hospital, but still nobody's even figuring out what's going on currently.
So, Christine, there's a lot of emotions going on. There's, you know, you lost your daughter. You've got arrangements that you're trying to make, and you know, when do you realize that something has to be done about the length of time to notify a family member or a loved one when someone has been involved in an emergency situation? When does that really start to enter your mind, and you know, I got to put something into action. I got to make something positive out of this tragedy.
So I was working at the Rod Reel Pier on Anna Maria, and I want to say I operated in shock. I don't think I was even like coherent on, like, I don't know if I slept. I don't know if I ate. I went to work. I was in a routine. But somewhere, I want to say within 2 months, something was in my brain. And it was like, okay, she's on a motorcycle. She doesn't have her purse with her. She's got her driver's license with her in her pocket. And I'm thinking, okay, and so I don't have an exact time on that. But I thought, what if there was a way to do something with a license? I don't know. I'm a server. I don't have government or law enforcement training or anything. Right. But what if there was something we could do with a license? So as far as putting emergency contacts. So I started a petition drive. Well, someone suggested that. Let me correct myself. And I said, because I don't own a computer or nothing back in those days. This is 2005. And someone said, you need to start a petition. And I said, well, how does that work? It was the cook in the kitchen of the Rod and Reel Pier, Captain John, who said, I'll make the petition. So the petition is made, and everybody, because you work on a 7-mile long island, everybody knew me, they knew Tiffany, they knew my son Derek, who was one of the managers back then. So the petitions went wild. People start making copies and going door to door is what I understand. So still, I'm operating in this fog. So I have glimpses of things going on, but not exactly really true facts. So then I said, well, we have all these signatures, probably a couple thousand. I don't even remember exactly. And I thought, well, what do I do with that now? What do you do with a stack of papers? Because I don't know. And they said, go to Bill Galvano. Well, Bill Galvano was my state representative back then. And I've never been in one of those offices either. So I'm a little scared and intimidated. I mean, I don't know. Do I have something to say to him? So I have a meeting with him, and I introduced myself, and I said, this is my story. What if we were able to do something with a driver's license and put emergency contacts into it? And I'll never forget his words. He looked at me, and he said, oh, my God, this is amazing. And then in turn, Bill Galvano took it to Florida Highway Safety Motor Vehicles in Tallahassee. Said, there's a mom in Bradenton. She's got this idea. Florida, what do you think? And the state of Florida looked at it and they said, why haven't we done it? We're doing it immediately.
Right.
And 6 months later, TIF was born.
And TIF is the acronym for the
To Inform Families First,
right.
which is really the mission, isn't it?
It
Make
is.
sure families can be reached quickly in an emergency. And it's just a little side note on Tiffany. That girl, gosh. Her name was not supposed to be Tiffany. It was supposed to be Chloe Michelle. That was my name for my daughter, my first girl, my only girl, because it was my favorite perfume back in the day. And I thought, because I was a struggling mom, and I thought, you know, when you'd go to the department stores, you get that little sample of Chloe perfume. That's what Tiffany's name going to be. And her dad and grandma said, that's like an old lady name. What about Tiffany? And I thought, well, that sounds kind of pretty. Okay, Tiffany it is. So she was named Tiffany, but I'm giving birth to my daughter in the hospital in Milwaukee, and they're asking me how to spell it. And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't know if it's Tiffany or don't you have a name book or something? And they said, IANY or ANY? And I said, IANY, I guess, you know. Well, that's not how it's supposed to be. That's not how Tiffany is spelled.
Normally,
but
right.
Isn't it ironic? It was her name, and it's a one-of-kind program in the world. So it all ties into, you know, I say God's divine plan for my life and my healing and my calling and purpose on this planet.
Well, I know that God's hands were involved in this entire process because,
right.
Randy, if you've ever tried to, get a bill passed, get a bill sponsored, get two people to agree that this is a good program or this is something that we need. And then to have to wait for other people to, go through committees and also agree upon. I mean, what happened with, thank God for, at the time, Representative Bill Galvano, who is, just so knowledgeable. I mean, he's the king of Tallahassee. But he took this and he talked to the right people. And because of that, it took less than a year,
unbelievable,
for this to be implemented. So on October 2nd of 2006, we have what is now ECI, emergency contact information. Now, we still call it TIF.
Yeah.
And I always will, right?
Yeah, that's the origin of it.
That's because that's what ECI is. But you don't see that type of turnaround on anything related that requires government assistance.
Yeah,
and I'm not trying to be critical, but
Right.
it takes time. This is less than a year. It's enacted. It's available. And that's when I really become involved with Christina, because I'm sitting on her board. Just, law enforcement and other community members, just trying to assist her to get the word out. And that was really the main goal in the beginning. Let's get as many people in the state of Florida signed up, with TIF's initiative, and let's get this thing rolling. And I want you to talk a little bit about that, because I don't know if people can truly understand how God put people in your life to really allow this to happen. Because you always talk about, well, I don't know how to do this. I didn't know how to do that. Well,
Right.
Most people don't.
Yeah.
It's not normal to have to go to a representative or a senator's office and talk about, we need to implement this program and to get it done. But, I always felt like, there was always a door opened for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you just had more and more opportunities. And I want you to talk about those early days when we would have events. DHSMV, driver's license would bring those trucks there, and we would, try to get as many people there as we possibly could to get them signed up. You remember those days?
So I remember the Islander newspaper with Bonner on the island at her old location, which was in Holmes Beach. And I want to say, were you the deputy sheriff for Brad Stubbe?
Yeah, I was lieutenant. I was a lieutenant here at that time.
Okay. So, again, I want to say I'm operating still in fog. I don't really know what's going on. But Bonner, who owns the Islander newspaper, she said, we can have meetings here. So people would come in and we'd have like discussions. So what do we do with this? I mean, how do we get it to people? I don't really know.
Because really it's like a think tank, right? We're just throwing ideas out there.
So Bonner puts it in the newspaper. Rick comes along and he's like, okay, so I'm in law enforcement. There were numerous people that say, I can start promoting it this way. I can start talking about it that way. And I don't really know how it started to catch fire, I guess, because it has to go back to Florida Highway Safety because they put it, her name was Sandra someone. She was the head of Florida Highway Safety back then. And she put it on the website. This will be part of our website for all eternity. So TIF is on there. Yeah. So all these people that I have no resources to contact or anything are automatically starting to see we are offering an emergency contact sign up here. So the state is kind of in there. I'm the story, so I'm working the island. I'm asking Sheriff Wells, okay, so what do you think? What do we do here? Who do you talk to? Personal information officers, people going out into community. Okay, that sounds good. So, and then we just started pushing it out to the best of our abilities. But really, when you think, it's never been done. So we don't even know what to do exactly.
We just started to go out and campaign.
And just talk about it.
Right, I know that DHSMV started putting posters and information at all the DL offices and tax collector offices throughout the state to get the word out, and it just continued to grow. And we just continued to try to talk to anyone we could at any time.
Anybody that would listen.
Right,
yeah.
and anyone that really cared. And we tried to just impose upon them, and hey, you need to understand really how serious this is. If something happens to you,
why you need it.
And I want you. I remember that first milestone, 1 million. I remember how big that was.
I don't remember that. I remember the number, but I don't remember when that hit.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember when it hit, but I can tell you it didn't take long. But we had 1 million. And do you know what the numbers are today for the state of Florida?
I'm going to say in the state of Florida, it's almost at 22 million.
Yep.
So the state of Florida registers over 1 million people a year. But they're very active in this. So it's all over the websites, and people are hearing about it from different resources, being all law enforcement. So people are just knowing that they can add this. But it's interesting that this is how other states are hearing about it. So when a Floridian travels to another state and something happens there, an emergency situation or worse, law enforcement, my understanding is protocol. They swipe that license, and that's how Maine heard about it. And this was a fatality with a Florida resident visiting Maine on vacation. The accident happens. They swipe the license, and that was Detective Druin. And he said, Florida's got an emergency contact with a license. Who's doing that? Oh, Christine, you're doing it. I said, I'm not doing it. I'm the story, but the state of Florida. So now that engaged that state to, how do we get this done in our state now?
And how many states have implemented this?
I think it's about 19, but nobody asks me permission. Like they don't say, oh, we're going to, do this too. Christine, can we have your permission? They just follow Florida's lead. So it could be more, but my understanding, it's about 19.
That's incredible. So just for our audience, and on the law enforcement side, back 41 years ago, back 19 years ago, if we were at a traffic crash or some type of emergency situation, we were trying to notify family members, we really had to dig so often. If you're at the address on your driver's license has not been changed, there. Right? So we would have to really start working on trying to find a family member, and sometimes that would take hours. And I think that the average throughout the country was about 6 hours for family members to be notified. And, there's so much going on at the scene, you have to dedicate one person to locate information and go contact the family member. Now, luckily here at the Manatee County Sheriff's Office and most agencies, we have victim advocates. And that's their primary job, is to get to the family members to notify them that something has happened and we have an emergency. That is so critical, to be able to go onto your laptop, pull the information up. There it is, black and white. Here's the emergency contact. Get someone to that location now. Because the goal is, Randy and everyone, is to get the family there to be with that loved one, even if they're going to pass.
Yeah.
Is being able to say goodbye to them.
Right.
That's the goal.
And you've said that in the stories that you've told and the way you've promoted this through the years, every second counts.
Well, it does, because it's not just for accidents. It's not for children. A lot of people think, well, she was young, so it's for kids. It's for every single person that suffers a medical emergency. You think heart attack, stroke. Right. You say, my heart really, I did a podcast recently in Ohio for special needs. Autism. Anytime someone cannot verbally say, this is who to call on my behalf, that's where this emergency contact thing comes into play. Because, it's weather related. Anytime you are not at the address on that license, we're in hurricane season. Last year, this was a whole different story that was going on right here in our area,
right,
being hit by those hurricanes. I was gone. I went to Amelia Island, so I am not at the address. If something in my travels to the East Coast, if something had happened to me, I don't even know if the girl I was riding with, would she know to call my son? I don't know if she knew Derek's number. I don't.
Yeah.
But law enforcement would know. So, you can be, because of the stress, the anxiety. It's a car accident, and even if you're not fatally, you're like, not killed. I mean, I've been rear-ended, and I couldn't think of my son's phone number because I'm in panic mode, If it wasn't in my phone, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's any time you are not at that address on your license. So even the Coast Guard is looking at this because they respond to water emergencies. And we've had drownings in our Gulf of Mexico, and a lot of this is tourism, So these are people on vacation, and I hate that happens, but it does. How would they know who to contact in Michigan or California or whatever? I don't know where these people are. So that's what the urgency is, to take it across our nation to every single person, every single family, but also to every single law enforcement officer as a tool that they have in their tool belt. Mm-hmm. I go right to my emergency contact resource. That's all I have to do. And it's that fast. It's just literally a swipe of a license or whatever.
And
that's how fast that happens, instead of that 6-hour window.
Yeah.
So we have a solution, but we got to get this across our nation, and it has had international awareness for it. It's never been done. So that's interesting. Could it go international? Maybe. But right now I'm focused on the United States. That's a big enough task for me.
Sure. Christine, you've done an outstanding job, too, of explaining how simple it is. Mm-hmm. And when some of the early PSAs, I think going back to 2007, Sheriff Stubbe, we recorded that one, and we made that point of it takes 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And literally, as we're talking, I pulled that up on my phone here, and if I wanted to type it in, I could do this in about a minute or two. And it's there, and then it's always going to be there.
There's no reason not to do it. There's no reason to.
Right.
I mean, it's that simple. Mm-hmm. And everyone has some type of electronic device. You can do it from your phone, your laptop, your iPad. It doesn't matter. And we have to think about how, all of the people that move here to the state of Florida in their golden years, right? So they retired. They live here in Florida. All their family is in a different state.
Yeah.
Many of them are.
Right.
Yes,
and I can tell you that is so frustrating for us as we're trying to find, that family member. Yeah. And, it's something that people, if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for your family.
It's not just being in a car crash. So
it's any emergency.
It's any
Sheriff,
emergency. It's
the
elderly.
Right? Yeah.
Yes,
it's our homeless. It's every single person. There's a gal I connected with in Wisconsin, which is my home state, and her a 16-hour notification. 16 hours. She said, she explained to me. She says I was at home raking leaves. And then after you rake, she had a cold beer, something to eat with her husband, and she had no idea what was literally going on a few miles away. Her son was tragically killed on the Hone Bridge. I know that bridge. But, 16 hours. But that's what prompted the state of Wisconsin to hear her story. Right. And what are we going to do? Let's follow Florida's example and get it done.
And as you've had these taking off in all these other states, now up to 18 states that are doing this?
18 or 19, it's one of the two, yeah.
You've heard stories from people who have been success stories, in a sense, of people who've said, because I had this in an ECI, it made a difference. I'm
Absolutely.
sure you've heard a lot of those. So we know those stories are out there. And you're moving toward this taking off even with talks in Washington, correct?
So that was recently with Congressman Vern Buchanan. So this was the second time I seen him. The first time, that didn't go real well. But the second time, he looked at me. He said, do we have federal legislation for TIF? And I said, Vern, nobody's ever said that to me before. Federal legislation. I don't know. I'm not in government. So he looked at his assistant, Tara, and he said, well, do it. So that legislation has now been filed, not filed quite yet. They're waiting for October. Drafted, that's the word. But it's going to be called To Inform Families First Act 2025. There are steps to take before it goes to Congress by the end of this year to be voted on, to make it federal. It goes across the United States, which is amazing. You know, that's my goal.
Right.
But then it's up to every state to make sure we are doing everything in our power, like this podcast, to speak to those that we serve. Who do we serve? Who do you serve off camera? Who do you serve outside your job? Are you involved in sports? Do you coach teams? What do you do out there? Share a tip and say, hey, do you guys know you can do this? It's a simple thing that may be so beneficial to that person, and they may be so grateful because they knew to register because someone had a simple conversation. Just share some good news. You know, it's like if someone said, I got a cure for cancer. You would like, tell me more, you know?
Right.
TIF is the cure and the solution for being reached in an emergency. So share it, not just professionally, but take an extra step. Make it part of websites. Make it part of your business. Make it part of your community outreach. You know, the sheriff's office has the personal information officers. They go out into community, making sure these communities know they can do this. And it's up to us. It's really up to us as human beings. But if we stop talking, and that's your biggest thing, you've always said, don't stop talking.
Keep it rolling.
You know, just tell people, make it, you know. So I have these little bracelets that I wear everywhere, TIF bracelets. So when I still was gainfully employed at the Rod and Reel before it was knocked down by Milton,
Yeah, that's so
I would
sad.
wear my bracelets as a server, and people would ask me, like, what is that bracelet? What is that? And I would tell them, and they would say, well, is it in my state? And I said, no, not yet. I would give them a bracelet. They ate their grouper sandwich. They left and went home. Colorado, Illinois, and Kentucky all got on board because they came for a grouper sandwich and left with a bracelet and went on to change their state. One person on vacation. That's what we have the power to do, but we got to open our freaking mouth and tell
She's
people.
amazing. She's amazing. She really is. She is the reason why ECI, TIF's initiative, has been such a success throughout the country. We have a breakfast next week.
October 2nd.
Celebrating.
So
That's going to be 19 years.
19 years.
Since the implementation of ECI, right? What is your goal that day as we sit there and have some bacon and eggs?
It's going to be actually quiches.
Okay.
I have a French restaurant catering the event.
Getting fancy.
So, well, not really. It's people. This was a company on Anna Maria, Mademoiselle, and they have. She said, "I want to be part of this."
That's awesome.
I just want to be part of this. So now she's doing this, so she can make sure her family. I can register my family, but the goal for the breakfast, October 2nd, at the Community Foundation, which I will just name drop for a half a second.
Me too.
When I went in there. And I said, I just have to kind of get a layout for the room, how that's going to look. I'm hoping for about 30 guests, maybe whatever, you know. And so she says, okay, I think her name was Sarah. And I said, yeah. And I said, the mayor and the sheriff were the first to register, RSVP. She goes, the mayor's coming? I said, yeah, mayor's coming. She said, oh, the CEO's got to be here now. This is a big deal. I said, well, I hope it is a big deal. Every deal should be a big deal. But so the goal is hopefully that these political people in our community, be it mayors, commissioners, senators, law enforcement, but also I'm inviting the nonprofit world in. Everybody that goes out and reaches out to and works in the community. Be whatever their specialty is, homelessness, special needs, suicide, Centerstone's looking at that, Alzheimer's, they're coming in, Salvation Army, Anybody that goes out into the community and it is their heart and their passion to serve their community, make it part of a website. I'm going to encourage, and I'm actually going to have pledge cards that if you take the pledge, I will do everything in my power through my personal resources. I'm not asking you to recreate the wheel. Don't go outside of your work area that you work so hard at, but just the people you serve, and what can we do? Make it part of a website, get flyers done, the hospitals, anything like that. Just get it out there and help me reach the goal of going nationwide. But also, so the state of Florida, almost 22 million. I think Randy, you said we have about 24, 25 million, something like that. So we're pretty well covered.
Right.
But all these other states that are now implementing it, they don't have the success Florida does because they're just like, okay, we'll add it to a website. But I don't know what's there. The community, it's up to the community. So if we set examples, we do it through our hospitals, we do it through our school boards, we do it through our community awareness, we do it through community government websites. We're always got that link, emergency management, all that stuff, hurricane awareness. That link is always on every website that people say, okay, I can do that right here. We have to set a role model. Florida has to do this for the other states to follow so that they can have the same success as Florida. And no one will ever go through my horror of 6.5 hours because they didn't know. And we'll hear about that from two guest speakers. One didn't know she could register and the other one did. So that's what I'm doing.
Well, you're always doing something, and we appreciate you so much. Your energy is contagious, and I think that's why we have been so successful here in the state of Florida, Christine, is because of you, because you will not let Tiff's memory die.
Yeah.
And this is so important to all of us to see how you've been able to take something so tragic and to help so many people. And I'll keep saying that. You're helping millions of people not have to go through what you went through. And so we're going to continue to push the message. We're going to continue to make sure that people are made aware. If you had one quick, I want you to know you're the longest podcast we've had, but that's a good thing.
Okay.
That's why, and we wanted to do this now because October is so
Emergency
important.
Contact Month in Florida.
That's huge. And, we could probably do a whole different story on all the things that have happened in October over the last, 19 years. So what would be your last bit of information to give people in our community in regards to ECI?
So I've had a SCORE mentor, John Stewart, for, I guess, 9 years or whatever, and he came up with the most famous, awesome quote for Tiff. And he said, "You'll never know how much you need it until you need it." And if you say, I put it off, I put it off, oh, I forgot to do it or whatever, and that situation arises for you or your loved one, and you didn't take the 2 minutes to register, you will go through that 6-hour window. So don't delay. Do it today. Simple, easy, 2 minutes. And don't be afraid to enter emergency contacts. A lot of people think, well, I don't know, Big Brother has all this.
Right.
They already know.
It's safe.
They already know. They know more about me by just following, coming up behind me.
Yeah, Big Brother and Big Sister.
And Big Sister.
That's right.
But you know what? It's simply, you'll just never know how much you'll need it until it's you that needs it. So do it today. Really, I mean, we can be the change in this world. So
go to toinformfamilies.org.
To inform families first.
My bad.
.org.
Right.
.org. And register there.
Yes.
And if you're more comfortable, go through Florida Highway Safety Motor Vehicles. A lot of people say I'm a private website. I am. I'm the story for it, but it is done through the state of Florida, and the state of Florida is linked directly to Inform Families First. That's your registration page. So you're not giving me anything, Right.
Now, you are a nonprofit.
I am a nonprofit,
and people can help you.
the sheriff has really been the biggest contributor. So he has now, his donation is hired a national marketing company to get this across the nation. So they work tirelessly to get this information out. And so without the sheriff, but we talk about people that have come into our path. You are a man of God, and you were put in my path to help me with this. Mm-hmm. So God already knew you were going to be part of this. And even the previous sheriff, Sheriff Stubbe, I mean, he was a man of God. I remember all this stuff. So many people in my path are all believers in Christ. They all are. So what's going to happen next is going to be beyond me, but I'm ready for the challenge.
Your personal tragedy has been far-reaching. I'm sure Tiffany would be very proud of you, and obviously, like Sheriff said, her legacy lives on, through this. And I know people will be very interested in doing something they've been delaying and putting off. And we're going to encourage people to continue to learn more about your mission and what you're doing.
Thank you.
And man, it's been great. What an inspiration, Sheriff.
Absolutely. And Christine, my friend, thank you so much for joining us, for allowing us to get your story out there to our listeners. Our goal is your goal, to touch as many people as we can, get them signed up, help us help you, right? Help us help you.
Well, too, it's you helping other law enforcement know about this, So I'll never forget what you also said. I'll talk to anybody in the world. Tell them to call me. I'll talk to him, And I said, who says that? Who says stuff like that? My sheriff says stuff like that because he knows what will happen if you don't register. You don't provide an emergency contact, we have nothing to go on.
Right.
So I thank you both.
Thank you.
Christine Olson, to informfamiliesfirst.org.
Yes.
And if you have any questions, you can also reach out to us, Manatee County Sheriff's Office, manateesheriff.org. Hit us on our social platforms. Call us. We'd love to be able to share more information about you. We appreciate you tuning in and listening to the Well Said podcast. I'm Randy Warren for Sheriff Rick Wells.
Take care, everyone.
We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.